outbreak affects thousands in Uganda. North Korea denies supplying weapons to Russia. Brazil grants tax exemption for foreign investors in corporate bonds. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari has addressed the United Nations General Assembly in New York for the last time, telling the world body that by this time next year, the country will have a new president representing it. President Buhari stated this at the 77th General Assembly. He recalled that he would have first addressed them in 1984 as military head of state, but had his first opportunity in 2015 when he became the democratically elected president of Nigeria. President Buhari thanked the world leaders who have cooperated with Nigeria in the efforts to tackle various challenges, while he also highlighted the actions of the country in bringing peace and stability to the West African sub-region. He spoke of the continuing challenges facing the world, which he said had been exacerbated by the war in Ukraine. Ugandan health authorities say an outbreak of the skin condition scabies has affected about 25,000 people in an eastern district near the capital, Kampala. Head of Health Services in Palisa district, Mr. Geoffrey Mulekwa, told newsmen that those affected were from fishing villages in Kasodo and Oloki areas. The villagers first alerted officials to the outbreak 2 months ago after noticing several cases of a severe skin condition that causes itching and rashes. Meanwhile, officials blame communal practices like bathing in the lake for the rising infections, where there are poor sanitary practices. Information has it that villagers are now being encouraged to stop communal sharing, bathe twice a day with soap, wash beddings and dry them under the sun, while hiring of clothes is also recommended to those who can afford it. Medicated creams that could help ease the itching are now part of the essential medical supplies provided by the government. Scabies is an infection of tiny mites in the skin. According to the report, it is contagious between people. The Gabonese opposition leader, Guy Nzobua Ndama, has been placed under house arrest 5 days after he was detained at the Congolese border with suitcases packed with about $2 million. His arrest was filmed and the opening of the suitcases posted on social media. Mr. Nzoba Ndama, a potential candidate in upcoming presidential elections, has been charged with violations of import controls and cooperation with a foreign power. His party, the Democrats, say the accusations are politically motivated. The 76-year-old was for 19 years the Speaker of the National Assembly and a loyal ally of the former President Omar Bongo, father of the incumbent Ali Bongo Ondimba. This is the World at Noon, coming to you from Osun State Broadcasting Corporation, Voice of the West, Nigeria. Now a mid-news message. Democracy can only thrive in the atmosphere devoid of rancor, acrimony, and the rule of law. Be law-abiding. Ecuador's president, Mr. Guillermo Lasso, has said a body found by authorities is that of a young female lawyer who went missing after visiting a police training school. He named the 34-year-old woman as Maria Belen Berna, who vanished 10 days ago after going to see her husband at a facility in the capital, Quito. Her husband is the main suspect in a killing and is on the run. Ms. Berna's death sparked protests in a country which has reportedly seen more than 200 femicides this year. Officials said her remains were found on a hill 5 kilometers from the training school in question. Commenting on the grim discovery, President Guillermo Lasso said the news caused him deep pain and indignation, vowing that a killing would not go unpunished. Report has it that the school's head has been sacked and the government has offered a reward of $20,000 for the capture of Ms. Berner's husband, Lieutenant German Caceres. Mr. Caceres disappeared not long after giving police a statement about his missing wife and was subsequently fired from his job as an instructor at the school. North Korea has denied supplying weapons to Russia and has no plan to do so in the future. This follows a report from the US that Moscow was turning to Pyongyang to replenish stockpiles. US officials said earlier that Russia could purchase rockets and artillery shells from North Korea. They said such moves, along with alleged purchases of Iranian weapons, showed Western sanctions were impending Russia's effort in the Ukraine war. Moscow denied the report at the time. Brazilian President Mr. Jair Bolsonaro has approved a provisional measure to exempt foreign investors from paying tax on profits from investment in private securities. According to a statement from his office, the tax exemption will be granted for capital gain on fixed income securities issued by companies and banks, such as debentures and bonds. Foreigners currently pay a 15% tax on capital gains from local private sector bonds, but are exempted from the tax when they invest in Brazil's stock market and public debt. According to the government, the measure will increase demand from foreign investors, helping to bring funds into the country and lowering funding costs for local firms. And here again are the highlights of the world at noon. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari has addressed the United Nations General Assembly in New York for the last time, telling the world body that by this time next year, the country will have a new president representing it. Ugandan health authorities say an outbreak of the skin condition scabies has affected about 25,000 people in an eastern district near the capital, Kampala. North Korea has denied supplying weapons to Russia and has no plan to do so in the future. Brazilian President Mr. Jair Bolsonaro has approved a provisional measure to exempt foreign investors from paying tax on profits from investment in private securities. That was the word at noon, edited by Olushola Egbedofo and delivered by Temitope Olayiwola. News Talk by Adeni Ikende of our editorial beat centers on the looming food insecurity in the country.
Food security is a measure of availability of food within a geographical area. It could also be described as the time when people have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food which meets their dietary needs. On the other hand, food insecurity exists when people do not have adequate physical, social, or economic access to food sufficiency. It will be recalled that earlier this year, Nigeria was listed as one of the 37 countries in need of external food assistance. Findings also revealed that food insecurity will ravage the world due to conflict, terrorism, and inaccessibility to farmland and other related matters. For over a decade now, crises and clashes in most parts of the country have been affecting food production in no small measure, but got unbearable in the last 2 or 3 years. Recently, the United Nations has raised alarm that no fewer than 5,000 children in war-ravaged northeastern Nigeria are at risk of starvation in the next 2 months unless the world raises the necessary funds for intervention. A report credited to the United Nations Office for Humanitarian Affairs indicated that 700 billion naira will be required this year to assist 5.5 million people, including women and children, with food aid in states like Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe. There are indications that Nigeria is already experiencing drastic reduction in food supply with attendant hike in prices of most common staple food items. This fear is anchored on the continued herders and farmers clashes in some parts of the country, most especially the north central. The displacement and killing of people who are predominantly farmers in the epicenter of terrorism and banditry in the country can also be a factor. The fact remains that number of those killed keep on rising as the crisis continues unabated in most states of the Federation. It will be recalled also that in the Northeast geopolitical zone, which comprises Adamawa, Yobe, and Borno states, intensive farming and food production have been stalled due to the act of insurgency by the Boko Haram. The states in question were known for the production of grains, beans, wheat, and animal husbandry before the Boko Haram crisis, which started sometimes in 2009. News talk posits that if the country fails in taming the crisis and farming activities are continuously hindered, Nigeria's food security drive may be heading towards a total failure. Investigation on food production statistics also revealed that poor access to loans has been contributing immensely to inadequate farming activities in the last few years. Newstalk believes that farmers across the length and breadth of the country have been complaining of their inability to obtain funds due to stringent conditions attached to loan by specialized and commercial banks. In order to avert the impending food insecurity in the country, Newstalk appeals to the federal government and stakeholders in the agricultural sector to encourage and sponsor more than ever before the introduction of mechanized farming in the crisis-free zone of the country in order to enhance the cultivation of food crops in the country. Likewise, government must not pay lip service to efforts at tackling insecurity and be sincere about its willpower. Likewise, government must not pay lip service to efforts at tackling insecurity and be sincere about its willpower to check the herdsmen and farmers' persistent clashes. Newstalk maintains that government at all times should give incentives to genuine farmers in order to encourage them to produce massively for the teeming population of the country in order to have food sufficiency.
That news talk on the impending food shortage in the country was written by Adeni Ikende of our editorial desk. It enjoins the federal government to do the needful on time in order to salvage the nation from acute food shortage. For more about us, visit www.osbcng.org. Thanks for listening. Good afternoon.
Ole koko. Omi Come, everybody, make gonna listen to the show. We play your reggae music that is pleasant to your soul.